Today on the DML News podcast, we're going to talk about Trump's escalating tariff war with almost basically all of Europe at this point. We're also going to talk about how Russia is saying no to the ceasefire deal that was scripted out this week. And we're also going to talk about an interesting report that's coming out of Germany that maybe could have actually helped and influenced how the 2020 U.S. presidential election could have turned out. We have this and a whole lot more to go over today, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hey everybody, it's Denny here at the desk. Ryan is with me today too on the controls, and DML is out today, but he should hopefully be back tomorrow, and tomorrow we should be back with our live show. But until then, you got us too, and we have a lot to go over. But as always, a lot of what we're about to go over can always be found in the 47 report. I'm holding up a coaster that even reflects the full name here. Actually, Ryan, do we have a full camera shot today or no, right? Because, yeah, so 47 report. I know if you usually watch the show, when we do the wide shot, it's on the screen here. It's to my right. But the 47 report, our newsletter that covers the Trump administration every single day, the good, the bad, the neutral, the things that even if we don't want to hear it, you got to hear it and you got to know about it. Everyone, that is looking to get updates as to what's happening in the country, what's happening with their government, and what's happening internationally, which I think at this point in 2025 is really influencing how things are going. I would say you need to sign up for this newsletter. And if you have a friend or a neighbor or a coworker or maybe that distant relative you just reconnected with and they're like, hey, what's going on these days? This is the newsletter. When you sign up and you share it with two people with our referral program, you will get this coaster that has the 47 report on it. And it's really a great coaster. We've been sending out a lot this week for those that only get 2 referrals. I mean, it's super easy. It's in the email. Just share it, 2 people. It helps us out, and you get the message out, too, of what's going on out there. And like I said in the beginning of the show, there's a lot going on. Yesterday, Trump hosted the Irish Prime Minister, Martin, here. And it's kind of a traditional thing for the White House to do. Around this time every year, March 17th is St. Patrick's Day. So it was a nice little meeting. There was a funny little moment where J.D. Vance, I guess he doesn't wear pants that really fit over his full legs. He was wearing shamrock socks, and Trump pointed out, and it was pretty funny. But for the most part, it was your standard meeting of tariffs, because at this point in the venture of what Trump is trying to actually do here with the economy, between the protests at Tesla stores and people trying to sell off their investments because they're worried, it's definitely an atmosphere of chaos at the moment, and that kind of became the direction of the conversation yesterday, as well as the latest with Russia and Ukraine, but we'll get to that in a moment. We have a clip here where Trump basically lays out a perfect example of how he is actually trying to use the tariff power to really bring back not only manufacturing, but just companies to stay in the U.S. Ireland, for example, and it's funny because, obviously with St. Patrick's Day coming up, it's going to be fun little celebrations of going to a pub or maybe dressing up in green and having a beer. I've been actually texting with my mom, and we have our interview with Miss Mary this weekend for Life After 50, which will be great. But I've been texting her about Ireland because our heritage, our ancestry stems from Ireland, especially on my mom's side. And the Irish people are really fantastic people. When you think about the actual history that they have gone through, I mean, besides the fact that it's a small little island up there in the north, it's a very vibrant, strong culture where what's happening to that island, especially under liberal leadership, in just a 20-year span alone, is just absolutely criminal. And it's kind of made it to the point where Ireland really doesn't have any sway or talking power, even in the regards of the EU. It doesn't have the pull of, say, the UK or, say, Germany, for that matter. And I wrote this in the 47 report, and it's just fascinating, and it's a testament to the demographics. But in Ireland right now, and this wasn't discussed yesterday with their meeting, but in Ireland, their latest census that actually accounted for the immigrants that live over there in 2022, that was the last time they had it up there. 20% of Ireland's population was born outside of the country. 20%. In 2002, the 20 years prior, it was only 10%. So it can only leave the curiosity as to what's it going to look like in 2050, because as you see with the US and Europe, this uncontrolled mass migration, immigration is destroying, especially in Europe, cities and even small towns. Ireland is just a little island. I think it can only sustain so much. And clearly the leadership there, I don't know if they need to put Conor McGregor or someone else in there, but their leadership is just typical EU. It bows down to this liberal ideology of let's bring them all in. So I think it's nice that we got Trump there with the Irish PM basically saying, my whole tactic here with the tariffs is that you may be doing great in certain areas, and in this case, it's about pharmaceuticals, but my whole goal as the leader of the U.S. is that we're going to be bringing back everyone that we can. So, Riley, let's play that clip.
Tariffs on the EU.
I know this gentleman. He'll get it solved.
When you put more tariffs on the EU, will you respond to their retaliation?
Of course I'm going to respond.
You will
The
retaliate with
problem
more
is our
tariffs.
country didn't respond. Look, the EU was set up in order to take advantage of the United States.
Including Ireland? Is Ireland taking advantage of the US?
Of course they are. I can't, I have great respect for Ireland and what they did. And they should have done just what they did. But the United States shouldn't have let it happen. We had stupid leaders. We had leaders that didn't have a clue. Or let's say they weren't business people, but they didn't have a clue what was happening. And all of a sudden, Ireland has, our pharmaceutical companies and other, this beautiful island of 5 million people has got the entire U.S. pharmaceutical industry in its grasp. And, you mentioned housing and you mentioned other things. I mean, I have property in Ireland, as you know, and I love it. It does great. But I'd like to see the United States not have been so stupid for so many years, not just with Ireland, with everybody. I looked at trade deals. I was telling the group yesterday, I looked at trade deals in term one. It's one of the reasons I decided I had to do this, because somebody had to straighten it out, and I didn't see anybody that was going to. I looked at trade deals that were so bad, I'd actually say, how is it possible that this could have happened? Who would have been so stupid to let these deals happen? For instance, when the pharmaceutical companies started to go to Ireland, I would have said, that's okay if you want to go to Ireland. I think it's great. But if you want to sell anything into the United States, I'm going to put a 200% tariff on you. So you're never going to be able to sell anything into the United States. You know what they would have done? They would have stayed here.
So do you think
He's so lucky that I wasn't. He's so lucky.
And look, we've said it every day on this podcast. It's going to be a very bumpy road. And I want to play another clip, kind of immediate here, regarding tariffs. It's from Senator Deb Fischer. She's a Republican out of Nebraska. And she kind of, sheds the clarity here of Trump's purpose of the tariffs is obviously to bring back American manufacturing and workmanship. But at the same time, it's going to be a little bit not only of a bumpy road, but kind of a strike down in a sense to those that are in the agricultural field. It's true. Usually they're the front line that feels it the most. And the hope here with the tariffs is obviously to get farmers to be selling within the U.S. again, and then we can see prices lowered because at this point to try and do any maybe exported crop sales to foreign countries with these tariffs in place is not going to be financially beneficial. So it's one of those rip the Band-Aid off now and then see how it heals. Deb Fischer here, Ryan's going to play the clip, is pretty sure that it's going to heal. So let's hear from her.
When you talk about tariffs, people in ag get a little nervous because we know we are the easy target for other countries if they are going to retaliate. But I can tell you across the ag sector in Nebraska, there's tremendous support for President Trump and what he is trying to do in order that we have fair markets.
I mean, that's a strong indicator. And if she is valid there, then she is saying that Nebraska farmers understand what's going to be the implication at first, but in the long haul, they are supporting it. So it's testy waters for sure for Trump right now. It's all he's being questioned about. And I can't blame those that are questioning, because the uncertainty and the chaos leads you to believe, where do I land on the board overall? Now, something that is, I want to maybe just briefly mention, because this is more of an update today. So there's going to be more to it. And I want to get into our main report from the 47 report. In Russia, Steve Witkoff, the special envoy for Trump, was there with negotiations. I don't know if I'm going to be able to really pronounce this guy's name correctly. He's a Kremlin aide, Yuri Ushakov. And Ushakov, on the behest of Putin, indicated that Russia is not in any interest going to agree to this ceasefire deal. Their reasonings is that it gives Ukraine time in a way to recoup. They have a good point. But their overall statement was, why a ceasefire and not a peace plan? And by peace plan, they are trying to get the requests that they initially made. Guarantee of no NATO membership. Ukraine military needs to be severely reduced. I think there's somewhere in provisions of not developing, a nuclear arsenal. An immediate election to see where Zelensky lands. In other words, he would likely be voted out. And this is probably the toughest one, Russia retains the captured territory. Ukrainian soldiers pull back. And they also have full sovereignty over the Crimea region. Crimea region. That sucks, in the sense of, I feel bad that Trump and his State Department have been very much trying to navigate these tough waters. I don't think anyone really believed that the war was going to end day one, let alone really in month one or month two. But the whole point with the ceasefire was supposed to be the first stepping stone to try and get to the full peace plan, but Russia is seeing it differently. The idea here is that I think Trump's overall retaliation is going to be, okay, time for tariffs for Russia too. I don't know if that's really going to impact them the way we're going to hope, but this is going to have to be something that I don't know how Trump is going to truly navigate it, other than give financial consequence to Russia. But this is kind of now pointing in all right, the war is now maybe a step back from actually achieving peace. I still think we need to maybe just go with the approach here of getting our involvement to a literal zero, or just minimal, regardless of mineral deals or regardless of giving them reduced aid or funding. This seems like there's an impasse that trying to negotiate with someone like Putin, who clearly has his own objectives here, and then trying to, handle Zelensky, who clearly is a little bit of a firecracker in the sense of rude and also just ungrateful, and clearly a little bit troublesome, especially when it comes to maybe hold an election. But in regards to one other country I want to mention here, this was the main report from the 47 report last night. Anita also covered it on the True News app, and it's infuriating when I read it, because it's another clear indication of how things maybe could have played out differently if there was just honesty. I'm talking about Angela Merkel, the former leader of Germany. So I'm going to just kind of maybe read a little bit verbatim here. You may have read it if you are subscribed, but the Trump administration revealed a suppressed investigative report from Germany's Foreign Intelligence Agency, the BND, which concluded with 80 to 95% certainty that COVID-19 originated from a lab accident at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. Now, as I read that, you're probably like, well, no duh. But the point is, that report was written and basically surmised in 2020 by their own intelligence report. And Angela Merkel decided, how about we suppress that report, because if we are to release it, it just helps Trump's claim that this is completely on China for COVID. Because if you recall, 4 to 5 years ago, to even mention the lab leak theory was maybe grounds for censorship and condemnation. It's ridiculous to think that this, I'm not going to curse here, I usually leave that for my father, but it rhymes with witch, honestly. The fact that Angela Merkel and a European stooge and a monstrous, globalist, in my opinion, is going to have some dictation here about, I can't have Donald in there. I need to have Joe Biden. Really, really? And it's frustrating because I'm sure, obviously, with our own intelligence agencies and what we have seen since then with what their own surmising is of what happened with the lab leak, the fact that they were privy to the information but decided, maybe let's just shut our mouths because it don't only help Trump is just effing absurd. And it could have maybe dictated, I mean, imagine, right? The reports released, it actually indicates here that what was going on in Wuhan was completely irresponsible, also happening under Anthony Fauci's watch. Maybe it would have helped people realize, okay, Trump's got a point, that this isn't just some natural occurring thing that came from a bat in some marketplace. No, Wuhan was doing nefarious things that clearly impacted the entire world and basically how the election turned out truthfully too. So very frustrating to I'm sure Trump to read something like that, knowing it probably could have helped a lot having that, NATO allyship that they love to tout, and yet we can't actually get maybe a response back or some feedback or any intelligence says, hey, just so you know, maybe this is actually coming from a lab. Seriously, shame on Angela Merkel. But just shame on Germany, Ireland, and a lot of these European nations that have just allowed what is a very beautiful continent to really falter in these last few months. And now with Russia basically just saying, screw Ukraine, we're going to continue until these terms that we have said for 3 years now are met. They're in a dumpster bin. Not that we're any better sometimes, but they really are in a dumpster bin. That's catching fire. And I don't know how they're going to get pulled out, truthfully, without our assistance. I don't know how much we can assist, though, because one thing we're going to have to address today is that we may be heading for a government shutdown. We mentioned this in the 47 report, but I'm sure you're all familiar with the expression, the Schumer shutdown. Chuck Schumer indicated, because the deadline is tomorrow, Friday midnight, that Senate Democrats are not voting in favor of passing the CR because I'll let Chuck explain for a second. But I found this video that I want to start off with before we start talking about Chuck, because it involves him, Nancy Pelosi, and I think there was a third person in this video. Bernie Sanders, that's who it is. I just want to remind people, because in the same way with immigration, how Democrats today are open borders for everyone, but 15 years back it was, let's actually protect the border. This is just a reminder that while they all have absolute meltdowns and whining sessions over Doge and Elon Musk, basically this kind of point promoting what should be cut. Here is a flashback from 2011, 3 different videos that are clipped together of Democrats supporting cutting wasteful government spending and programs. Ryan, let's play the clip.
Yes, you do have to cut some programs. I think there's waste out there. I think there are programs that can and should be cut.
Again, we all agree we have to get rid of waste, fraud, abuse, duplication, obsolescence, and the rest. The GAO has given us a blueprint for that, and we subscribe to that. We all agree that we must reduce the deficit.
There's tremendous waste in government, and I think any Democrat who ignores the lessons, the lessons of those who voted, the lessons of the last election, makes a mistake. The people did want government to cut out the waste and to shrink.
See, listening to something like that, it feels like it's an alternate reality, because what happened to those 3 in this 15-year time span? Well, let's return to Chuck, since he was the last one there. Schumer announced from the floor last night that Senate Democrats have no intention of supporting the CR, which basically is going to leave it in dire straits, especially if you got someone like Rand Paul on the Republican side not voting for it, of actually passing. What does that mean? Well, government shutdown. I'll let you hear from Chuck Schumer himself.
Mr. President,
the Democratic leader.
Funding the government should be a bipartisan effort, but Republicans chose a partisan path, drafting their continuing resolution without any input from congressional Democrats. Because of that, Republicans do not have the votes in the Senate to invoke cloture on the House CR. Our caucus is unified on a clean April 11th CR that will keep the government open and give Congress time to negotiate bipartisan legislation that can pass.
Oh, I wish I could report better news, but this is par for the course. Sometimes when it rains, it pours. I'm sure the Trump administration is not happy because as much as this CR has been contentious, even just getting through the House with the whole Thomas Massie situation, now it's looking like it's not going to pass at all. So with a government shutdown and a suspension on funding and just basically a disarray of actually getting the Trump agenda to start to full capacity, this is just another kneecap in a way. And it's classic Chuck Schumer just to rain on everyone's parade. Rye, I was hoping I could bring you in here to just get your good old opinion on Chuckles initiating yet another Democrat stand-up to actually help out Americans and fund the government.
It's typical. I mean, I feel like this happens every time. So
when you play that flashback video, and they're all about cutting the wasteful spending, and then you see them at every inch and angle trying to disrupt this presidency. It is baffling to me. And again, just clear indications. Like this is from the 47 report. One of Doge's cancellations or recommended cancellations. This actually contains to the National Institute of Health, NIH, recent grants that have been cut or proposed to cut. $620,000 for LGBT plus inclusive teen pregnancy prevention for transgender boys. $700K to study cannabis use among sexual minority gender diverse individuals. And $740K to examine social networks among Black and Latino sexual minority men in New Jersey. No taxpayer has ever asked for any kind of money applied to that study. And while it may seem minuscule in the sense of millions and billions that we spend on other things and wasteful things, it's another just indication here that are the Democrats really just absolute hypocrites? Is that just the absolute status symbol at this point? They say one thing 10 years ago and now it's another. I mean, Republicans are guilty of it too, but it's like Democrats truly embolden, or I should say embody the image. And honestly, it's to our detriment and to, I don't know, our safety in a way. I mean, look how flying has basically transformed in people's perception in just a 2-3 year span alone, right? It started with the Boeing planes, the Maxes having the issues where doors were falling off or engines were catching fire. And then you have what just happened, like a few days after the Trump presidency, where the plane collided with the helicopter in DC. I mean, clearly, our federal aviation outlines and regulations need to be fixed up. We need better employees and hires in those departments, pilots and operators. If you don't believe me, we actually have a viral audio clip that's going to be played for you right now. This is Shelton Snow. I believe, what is he? He is actually an air traffic operations supervisor. And here he is talking about how he was purposely giving answers to examinations that were going to be given to minority applicants who were trying to work for, trying to be a FAA operator or someone working in aviation. So let's play the clip.
Washington Suburban Associate members, brothers and sisters, listen. It's been a really busy time for me these past 4 days. I know that each of you are eager, very eager, to apply for this job vacancy announcement. And trust, after tonight, you will be able to do so. I am asking that you give me another 15 or 16 hours. Allow me to go to work and come home, provide you with an email that will be extremely crucial in the opening stages of this hiring process. There are some valuable pieces of information that I have taken a screenshot of, and I'm going to send that to you via email. Trust and believe it will be something that you will appreciate to the utmost. keep in mind, we are trying to maximize your opportunities. And I'm doing the very best that I can with the time that I'm given.
Seriously, we need to clean up, clean up in aisle airplane, please. Another thing that's going on right now is in New York City. We have kind of a crazy clip here. Ryan's going to play it for you. The audio is a little much, so we kind of tuned it out after a little bit. But right now, Khalil Mohammed, the green card holder who is in ICE custody for being a pro-Hamas activist, that's kind of causing a lot of controversy because, he's grounds for deportation, but then a radical leftist judge, typical, blocks the deportation status. So now he's in limbo, and protests are happening all over New York City where he is currently being held. So here's Tom Homan with some ICE officials. You'll see Homan in the video eating an apple, completely undisturbed by these crazy people. And he's just walking by as they're all shouting for this anti-American activist who, in my opinion, should have already been out of the country. So let's play it. Sometimes I wish there weren't cameras to cover these things because it's just going to give Democrats fire that Tom Homan is heartless and cold, even though in his press conference he made it very clear that while Mayor Adams, the New York City mayor, has been a little bit more cooperative with handling illegal aliens, by large, Governor Hochul has not been. And we wrote it in the 47 report, but Homan's been issuing threats about stepping it up with immigration enforcement, with getting more agents in the state. So Khalil Mahmoud, or however you say his name, is still here. It's been clear that he has some anti-American sentiment based on evidence found. And at this stage, the way Democrats and leftists are trying to make it is that he has free speech and rights and yada yada, even though, again, he's not an American citizen. So I think what we need to do here is get some kind of executive order or some kind of legislation at this point that really ends these radical judges impeding on. I mean, you really want more examples of just how annoying these judges are? Here's one. We reported this in the 47 report a few weeks ago, and now there's another flip around because another federal judge gets in the way. Federal judge temporarily blocked President Trump's executive order targeting Perkins Coie, a law firm that represented Hillary Clinton and basically was behind the whole fabricated Steele dossier. Here's another one. Federal judge sharply criticized Justice Department lawyers over a retweet by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth stating that transgender troops are disqualified from service without exemption. She's a Biden appointee, and she's looking to now basically address or block the Pentagon's policy regarding trans people working for them. Another Biden-appointed judge temporarily blocked the Department of Education from canceling $600 million in DEI-focused teacher training programs. I bet Shelton Snow will find a position there. 8 states, including California, New York, Illinois, and a few others here, they are now filing a lawsuit against Linda McMahon to try to make sure these DEI initiatives are funded. Again, these are all leftist radical judges that come from these random states that all of a sudden can just block up, President Trump's directives. Seriously, right? As Rush Limbaugh laid out, God bless him, tyranny of the judiciary, unquestionably. Ryan, do you know Michelle Obama has a podcast?
I mean, I'm not surprised. Does she? She does, though, now, right?
Oh, she does. Let's play it for our audience.
Hey, TikTok, it's Michelle Obama, and I'm here with my big brother, Craig.
Hey, everybody.
We're here because we're excited to announce the launch of our new podcast called IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson.
We started talking about this at the outset, why we're doing this show.
Post White House and writing the books and doing book tours, speaking at leadership conferences, things you do as a coach, you realize that what we have, even in our lack of resources, in our household growing up, we had people who would share their opinions, give us advice. We had mentors.
This is interesting to me, and this is where we'll start to end the show. So Michelle Obama has been kind of out of the spotlight, honestly, for a while, but notably was not attending any events regarding Trump's inauguration, or I think she also skipped on Jimmy Carter's funeral. There was speculation that she and Barack were heading for grounds of divorce because something with like Barack Obama having a thing with Jennifer Aniston. Probably false, but at the same time, now you got Michelle starting a podcast not with Barry, but with her brother, who I didn't know was even existent. But it seems that the basis of their podcast is going to talk about relationships, her time in the White House, and apparently in episode 2, they even talk about divorce. I haven't listened to it. I don't really ever plan to listen to the Michelle Obama podcast. But the reason I play the clip and even bring it up is that I think as much as we have kind of stomped on the idea, but maybe things change, there's no doubt that there's some correlation here where Gavin Newsom just started his own podcast. He should be trying to maybe fix California after all those fires. But he's been starting a podcast, and he's been trying to frame the podcast to get him looking like a moderate. I mean, he just had Charlie Kirk on. I don't know why Charlie Kirk would even go on the podcast. And he's about to have Steve Bannon on, even a more of a shocking kind of guest. But it's clear what he's trying to do. It's a rehabilitation. I don't know if Michelle Obama is trying the same thing here, because I would not be shocked if somehow she did come around to a 2028 run. And that is where maybe I get a little bit worried about our boy J.D. Vance, because there's something about Michelle when it comes to Democrat women where they like gravitate to her. I mean, when you think about it, right, during 2024, before they kind of really were landing on, do we run with Biden? Do we get Kamala in there? She would be in unofficial polls and more official polls, and she always had high percentage numbers. And it's kind of scary because I don't see the leadership quality whatsoever within her. Whereas you can kind of see it in like someone like a Casey DeSantis, who is probably going to eye for the governorship of Florida. But for some reason, Democrats and mostly Democrat women like literally gravitate to her. So I don't know if this is a podcast that maybe separates her from the legacy attachment of her husband. Because we all know that he kind of really scored a giant failure here with not getting Kamala in to kind of continue what his plan was going to be. But this also may, and maybe my prediction is completely off, could be a tee up for a possible 2028 run by going the podcast route. I'm hoping I'm wrong, because I don't want Michelle Obama running. I say run with Kamala and watch how that works out again. Well, that's it for the show today. Like I said, we will be back tomorrow with DML. We're going to do a live show, so that'll be great. And we got an interview for Life After 50 coming up. It's going to be our last one for season 1, and it'll be with Miss Mary, who we haven't had on the Wine and Talk or the show in a while, so that'll be awesome. And just a reminder, share the 47 Report. You can go to 47report.com if you're not signed up. Put your email in there. And, like I said, referral program. You get the coaster. We also have the Life After 50 mug, which I don't drink coffee, but I love the design of it. I think it's fantastic. That was a group effort there. So awesome. But until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow. And today's Team DML blessing goes out to Teresa Weinstein. Have a great day, everybody.
Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML.